Hi, everyone. Hi, World Journal attendees. My name is Jenny Wheatley. I'm the president here at Admission Masters, and I'm so excited to be giving you a seminar today, a workshop, giving you a lot of new information and a lot of new updates and trends that I'd love to share with you guys. I have this QR code on this side in case you want to learn more about our organization. Go ahead and take a picture or click on the QR code. You'll get some more information about our organization, our YouTube channel, and for our World Journal attendees, there's a special Q&A link. Since this is a recorded version of the seminar, you're more than welcome to go ask me any questions on the Q&A link, and I'd be more than happy to share those responses with you through email as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about navigating the 2024 college admissions trends and winning strategies and things that I feel like you guys should be considering as you are exploring college admissions. No matter what grade you are right now, I think it's important to understand what the trends are, what that looks like, and how you need to strategize in order to move forward in your high school journey. So once again, just a little bit about us. We are named the #1 educational consulting organization. A lot of really amazing newspaper organizations have given us this honor, and I am so very grateful for that. We have former admission officers from universities across the nation. So I am a former admissions officer as well, but we do have a lot of other staff members who have experience working in college admissions, which is really amazing, using their resources and their experiences to help our students. We are considered the leader in boarding school and college admission. So we do help middle school students also who want to pursue going into private schools or boarding schools. So we are helping with that as well. So if you are interested in, not just college admissions, but high school admissions, we help with that as well as graduate school. Our program is a little bit different than other consulting companies because we do use a team approach. That's something that we find to be very valuable. We have counselors and consultants who are all from different backgrounds and different experiences, and we use their experiences to support our students. And we do have a personalized program. Our program is not a one-size-fits-all. Students are all very different. They have all different types of weaknesses and strengths and experiences and backgrounds, and we really try to utilize those things to help our students. So every student's program looks a little bit different depending on their need. Once again, you can see the QR code on our screen to get more information about our organization so that you can learn about us and see if we would be the right fit for you. Okay, so just diving in really quickly, I do want to just kind of start with giving you some data points. Now, these data points are generally based on earlies. So if students have applied early, then of course we're going to have this information here. I am actually doing this recording the day before Ivy Day, and so more results and percentages will come out tomorrow. However, I do just want to share this with you a little bit. As you can see, in some respects, for Brown, for example, versus last year versus this year, there is a bit of a difference in, admissions rate. You'll notice that they have accepted more students in the early rounds. Same thing with Columbia with early decision. But then, of course, like schools like Dartmouth, you'll notice that there has been a little bit of a decrease. But the most important thing I think I really want to share with you with this data is generally that admissions are definitely becoming more difficult, but they're also staying around the same in terms of admission rates. We're seeing kind of similar numbers across the board, nothing too big in terms of a jump. But yes, this is early data. So early decision, early action, students that applied early and what those statistics look like. I do want to also talk a little bit about the common application for early applications. So there have been about 3 million applications submitted for this school year. So seniors right now, class of 2024, they had about 3 million applications. That's 65% more than pre-pandemic. So pandemic was right around 2019 and 2020. And since then, there has been this huge just higher number of applicants. Once again, I am just looking and showing you guys early applications. Okay, so this is through November. However, this does say a lot. If this number is very high for early, there definitely is higher numbers of applicants for regular as well. And this is also 18% more than last year's early cycle. So just to kind of show you a little bit more on this as well. So that was the number of applications. This is the number of applicants, actual students that are applying. So about 830,000 students applied and submitted to about 841 colleges nationally. So those are on the Common App. When we're not talking about the UCs, we're just talking about the Common App. This is 41% more than pre-pandemic. So once again, you'll notice that there has been this big jump since then, and 12% more than last year's cycle. The biggest thing I wanted to kind of highlight with this is that more and more students are applying early. I know we're talking about trends, but one of the biggest trends that we're seeing in college admissions nationally is that students are applying earlier. More students, more applicants are applying to that November 1st deadline, which is really, really important to understand, because if you are a student that's a current 10th grader or 9th grader, it means you need to also prepare your applications earlier. You need to be prepared earlier. And that is really important for students overall. So if we dive into this a little bit more, early apps compared to the total volume of applications, percentage of applications submitted in early applications is rising. So starting from 2019 to 2023, 2024, you'll notice that there has been this larger jump, 37%. There has been a bit less in 2020 to 2021, and that was because it was during the pandemic. A lot of students kind of didn't want to apply, early. They were not applying to college. They were planning on taking a gap year. They just found COVID to be very scary. So there's kind of a decline in this time period. But generally, there is this uptick, right? There's more students applying every single year, especially in early. And as you guys can see, I just talked about the early data, but we are foreseeing that the regular number of applicants are also rising as well. So students are preparing earlier, applying earlier, but they're also applying regular as well as they get those early results. So the number of applicants and the number of applications are growing. So let's try to understand this data and trend a little bit. Why is this happening? Why are more and more students, and why are there more and more applicants? What is going on with college admissions? Well, first of all, the common application, so the application that a lot of students use for non-UC schools, right? They are adding more colleges on the Common App. So if there are more colleges on the Common App, then students have more access to applying to a lot of different colleges, and that's going to influence the number of students that apply. So, before UT Austin, for example, right? University of Washington, these colleges, these large public schools used to not be on the Common App, but now these large public schools are being added to the Common App. They're seeing that, hey, if we get on the Common App, more students will apply to our school. And they're seeing that. And for that reason, they are asking the Common App to be added to the Common App as well. So these large public schools are being added, which is increasing the number of applicants because it's more convenient, it's more accessible for students to apply to colleges. They don't have to use multiple applications. They can just use the applications, just one application on the Common App to really go through, and apply to as many schools as they want to. Of course, the Common App does cap at 20, but still there are more options available. And then we're also seeing that more colleges are adding early decision and early action to their schools, also adding early decision 2 as well, which is huge. If you are a student that, planned on applying early decision or early action deadline November 1st, but you get rejected or you get deferred, then at that point, those students might consider doing early decision 2 because the deadline is later. It's not until January 1st or later, whenever the regular admissions application deadline is. And so because colleges are adding more of these early programs, they're seeing the benefit of having students apply early. They get those data and the numbers of applicants early. They know how many students to choose, right? They're getting those early. So more schools are adding those programs or those early strategies, and students are taking advantage of that. They're taking advantage of those options. They're taking advantage of those opportunities. So this is a really big reason why, more and more students are applying on the Common Application, and the application numbers are growing overall. So other trends that I did want to share with you guys a little bit. First and foremost, we've noticed that there have been an increase in international applicants. There was a little bit of a stall, I guess, so to speak, in international applicants, that now more and more international applicants are applying. So international applicants, even for early, has increased by 89%. So in 2019 to 2020, that was about 41,000 applicants. And now for this year, it's 77,000 applicants. So not only are we competing against domestic applicants, we're also competing against international applicants as well. And we've seen an 18% application decrease from China since 2019. And there's many of reasons and different reasons as to why that might be the case. We're actually seeing higher numbers of applicants from China applying as transfers or applying to graduate programs, less applying to undergraduate programs. And we've seen a huge increase in international applicants from India. So 118% applicants increase from India since 2019, 2020. And with test scores reporting, 96% of schools on the Common App for this year, 2023, 2024, were test optional. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard many Ivy Leagues and other colleges have been saying that they would like to be test optional, or they would like to go back to being test required. But with that said, we still definitely think that most of the common applications for next year and the next two to 3 years will remain test optional. 50% of students still report test scores, even if 96% are test optional, half of the students still report test scores. So if you are out there and thinking, oh yeah, 96%, that's test optional, I don't have to study for the SAT or ACT anymore. Unfortunately, that's not the case, because half of the students that you're competing against are still submitting test scores. And in more selective schools like Ivy Leagues, top 15, top 20, top 30 universities, over 75% of students that were accepted on average reported test scores. So this just kind of goes to show that even if it was test optional, sending in a test score still gets evaluated. It still makes an impact in your admissions, right? Because other people are doing it, right? Even if it's test optional, they're still studying for the SAT or ACT. They're still working hard to add those scores into their applications. So if you are one of those students that were considering going to a top 20, top 30 school, and you were like, I don't think I'm going to try for the SAT or ACT, you could be at a disadvantage, right? And that's something that I think is important to note. And then lastly, affirmative action. So one of the things that I did want to talk about really quickly is, I'm sure you guys know, last year, Harvard, for example, went through a lawsuit that is still in contention now as well. And because of their affirmative action and the impact of that, Harvard is choosing not to report the racial and ethnic composition of the students that were admitted. And so they're doing something a little bit more conscious to show that they are trying to be diverse. One of the big changes for affirmative action, like, I haven't really seen big changes in college admissions per se. Like, I don't think that Asians, were at a disadvantage of getting admitted. However, the things that college admissions are trying to do is to add diversity statements in their applications as part of the essays. So a lot of things that our students would have noticed more recently is that in the application, the essays that they have to write, one of the questions is like, tell us about a unique or diverse perspective or experience or upbringing that you had that you will bring to our college. So they just kind of added this like additional kind of prompt to their application to show that they are actively trying to make their class more diverse overall. I did want to share this really, really important slide with you guys. So this is the 11 heaviest users of early decision. What does that mean? Basically, if you are a student and you are applying early decision, these colleges accept the most number of students in early decision. So if you don't do early decision to these schools, you are at a severe disadvantage. Look at schools like Emory. They accept 66% of their students in early decision. WashU St. Louis, Washington University St. Louis, they accept 62% in early decision. Johns Hopkins, they accept 60% in early decision. I'm not talking about early decision 2, I'm talking about just early decision, deadline November 1st, right? So if you are thinking about applying to any of these colleges, I highly recommend that you apply early decision because it will significantly increase your chances of getting admitted. I do want to pause on this for just 1 second though. If you are applying early decision, you do need to be prepared, right? If you're like, I want to apply to Johns Hopkins early decision, Jenny said it increases my chances of getting admitted. That is only for students who have the qualifications to apply early decision. If you're not getting good grades or you don't have great test scores and you're not prepared to apply the November 1st deadline, the early decision strategy won't necessarily help you, right? So you want to make sure that if you are using the early decision strategy, you plan on using the early decision strategy, then you need to start preparing earlier and planning earlier so that you can be ready to use this strategy to your advantage. But this is one of the biggest things that I did want to share because I know some of my students are very interested in applying to these colleges. And I think it's important to note that if you're a 9th grader, if you're a 10th grader, if you're applying to early decision and the November 1st deadline, the only thing that goes into that November 1st deadline is all the way from 9th grade all the way to the summer of your 11th grade. Your first semester 12th grade grades do not get reviewed if you're doing early decision deadline November 1st, right? So because of that, it's super important for students to understand, oh, I need to have everything, test scores, grades, everything prepared, activities, all of these things prepared so I can submit after, my summer of my junior year, before even my 12th grade first semester is over, right? And a lot of schools' first semester is usually over in December, sometimes even January of their senior year. So it's really important to note that if you're eyeing these colleges, it's really important to have those things prepared early so you can use the strategy to your advantage. So let's talk about some key takeaways from these admissions trends that I will dive into. First and foremost, early admission is the new regular admission. So if you were thinking, oh, I have until, the end of my first semester, or I have until January 1st of my senior year to apply, we're noticing in larger numbers that applying early is actually going to increase your chances of getting admitted to most colleges. And many applicants and many students are taking advantage of that strategy and applying early. And because of that, we need to jump on that train as well. So early admission is the new regular admission. And early action, by the way, we talked about early decision, which is basically if you get admitted, you have to go no matter what. And then there's early action, which is if you get admitted, you don't have to go, right? You don't have to attend. But we're noticing that early action applicant pool is still getting more competitive. It doesn't give you the same advantage as early decision. Early decision is probably going to increase your chances generally on average anywhere between 7 to 15%. But early action, we're noticing because it's getting more competitive, is only going to increase your chance anywhere between 0 to 5%, if that. That's on average, right? So it's important to note. That early admission is the new regular admission, but early action is not giving the same advantage as early decision as it was before. And we're also noticing that early action decisions are coming out later. So we have a lot of students who apply early action. Like, for example, they applied to Northeastern early action November 1st. However, they didn't come out with their results until end of January. So when that happens, it becomes a little difficult because some students, they want to apply early action because they want to know earlier. Did I get admitted? Did I get rejected? Did I get deferred? Like, what is going on with this college? They want to know so that they can scale the rest of their college applications. But now colleges are delaying those deadlines a little bit more. So you can't really use it as a strategy. You can't just put in, Pepperdine early action because those results don't come out until later. You can't put in USC early action because those results don't come out until later. So you can't really use it as a strategy to know, where do I stand, right? How competitive am I in comparison to other students? Because that was one reason why students used early action in the first place. Another key takeaway for admissions trends is there's less barriers, more applicants, which means more competition. And so, because now we have test optional schools, the Common Application has added more colleges to their application. Students are applying at higher numbers because there's less barriers that are holding them back from applying to these colleges. So more students are having access to these colleges, which means that they're able to apply, which means you're not just competing against a smaller number of pool anymore. You're competing against a large a pool, right, of applicants, which makes it more difficult to get admitted. Even USC this year for early action, their acceptance rate was 7%. That's lower than a lot of Ivy League schools, right? You saw earlier in my first slide that Brown early decision was 14%, right? USC's early action was 7% acceptance rate, which means that, again, more and more students are applying and taking advantage of that early, and that just means more competition. And even at state universities, so University of Texas, University of Washington, right? These colleges that decided to be added to the Common Application, more and more students are applying to them because they are added to the Common Application. That is impacting how many students get admitted to these schools, right? Which is very difficult overall. Now that I've shared kind of the bad news, I did want to share these trends with you because I do think that these trends are important to understand. My biggest takeaway from the trends, though, is to prepare early, right? And I want to give you guys some strategies in terms of preparation. So let me dive into some of the strategies, thinking about, what do I need to consider? What do I need to be prepared for? What issues should I be thinking about, right? What should my plans be like for high school? So if I were to dive into this a little bit more, ED2, so I told you guys about early decision deadline November 1st, and then early decision 2 deadline is usually January 1st or later. Whenever the regular application deadline is for that college is usually when the ED2 deadline is as well. So students who are not prepared, right? They're like, oh, I'm not really prepared to do early decision. I'm not really prepared to submit by November 1st. You want to take advantage of early decision too. You want to take advantage of applying to that later deadline. Of course, it is a commitment because if you get accepted, you have to go no matter what, but you do want to plan for that potentially because there's generally a smaller applicant pool. You're competing against less students, which could mean that you can stand out amongst them, right? So early decision 2 is something to consider as a strategy. I still think early action is good practice. I know that I said, it would only increase your chance slightly. However, doing early action still, it opens up doors and opportunities. Even if you're getting that 1 to 2%, advantage for applying early action, take it. I think that still plays an advantage in applications versus someone who just applies regular and not early action. Making yourself stand out is becoming increasingly important. Part of that reason why is because there are more and more students doing the same things. And that's just kind of the reality of college admissions, right? Students are, hopping on the trend of how they need to be, showcasing their extracurricular activities, or they're kind of thinking about like what courses they need to take. Compared to other students at your high school, you need to stand out. And there are many ways that you can stand out, but namely, your essays, right, are very important to help you stand out. Your major, right, what major you choose can also help you stand out. Definitely your activities, but we understand that some of your activities will need to be clubs and things like that that you do at your school. But think about having maybe 1, 2 standout activities, right? Something that's going to give you a little bit more color, something that's going to make you look different from the other applicants. Your teacher recommendations definitely help you stand out. When I was an admissions officer, about I would say 75 to 80% of applicants had very similar teacher recs, very similar across the board. About 10% of students had not so great recommendation letters. And then about 10% of students had really standout recommendation letters. And I can do a whole nother seminar about recommendation letters and what goes into them and why they're important. But generally, you want to make sure that you're choosing teachers that really know you, that understand you as a student and also a person. People who are close to you, don't just think about, oh, I have to have one STEM and one humanities. That's only the case for schools like Caltech or MIT. Other schools, they just want teachers that are from your core courses that can really speak to who you are as a person. And then talents. I had a whole nother workshop about talents too. How do I find my talent? What is my talent? How do I bring that out in my application? There's a lot of things to think about there. I believe that every student has some sort of talent. It's just a matter of finding it, right? You could be a good sleeper. You could be a good eater. Those can be talents too. And utilizing those talents for things, right? If you're a good eater, making a mukbang YouTube channel, right? Where you eat, or ASMR, right? Things like that. There are things you can do to really make yourself stand out, and finding those talents are really important. And that's something that we help with at Admission Masters as well. Once again, be prepared by the summer before 11th grade. It is increasingly important that by the time you get to the summer of your 11th grade, you are prepared so you can take advantage of the early strategies, early decision, early action, so on and so forth. And plan early, your interests, your passions, your story, your goals. All of these things are incredibly important to shape what your college applications and your high school journey is going to look like. Depending on your interests and your major and your passion, your course schedule changes, your summer programs change, right? And what you do in the summer changes, right? There's so many different things that drive this journey of your interests and your passions. So it's really, really important to keep that in mind when you're building your profile for college applications. Your story and your goals are really important because that needs to be translated in your essays. That needs to be shared. That needs to be bringing kind of your whole application together as glue, right, to your application. Having a good story, having your goals, and making that connect makes admission officers know when we read your application, oh, this is why, Paul decided that he was going to major in this, because his story and his goals align to that. And so finding that is something that's really important so that you can make sure that you develop your application, your extracurricular profile that aligns with those things. And that's one of the things that Admission Masters, I would say, is really good at. We offer holistic support. We make sure that students not only get the help with the tangible things like the essays and the activities, but also shaping that part of it is a really big part, in my opinion, of developing your extracurricular profile, finding that interest, finding that passion, finding your story, finding your goals. All of those things are really important to start that journey. If I am going to talk a little bit about these three things, and I'm kind of running out of time, so I'll be very quick. When you apply to colleges in your application, generally colleges weigh your academics the most important part of your applications. 40% of the weight of your application is on academics. That is your test scores, your GPA, your course selection and rigor, your trend of your grades, right? All of those things are taken into consideration. That's about 40% of the weight. 30% are your extracurricular activities, right? They have to be impactful. You have to make an impact locally or in your school or nationally or internationally, right? And then 30% are essays, teacher recs, interviews. And I would say the way that you can look at this a little bit better is 70% of your application weight is on academics and extracurricular. That's 70% of the weight, right? 10% is essays, 10% is teacher recs, and 10% is interviews. And that's how you can look at it, right? So it's important that you select the right activities. It's important that you select the right academics because that all weighs about 70% of your application. And then these are the things that kind of build from that, right? It builds from your activities and your academic profile. So once again, for your activities, make sure that they're impactful, that you're thinking about the impact that you're making in the school, local, international, and national levels, that they are related to your major. If you're using the Common App, from 10 activities, about 6 of them should be related to your major and your passions and your direction. The teacher recommendations, one of the big things I tell my students is that this makes teacher recs make a bigger difference than you think. They're not just another piece of paper that goes into the application. They could make or break your decision of getting admitted or rejected. So start building your relationships early. It's super important that you have close relationships, not just participating in the classroom, but actually having that personal relationship with teachers is really important. And then essays, they do have to highlight something unique about you, right? It's not just the typical immigration story or that I love math or that I love science or that I do piano or violin, right? They do need to highlight something that differentiates you from other students and applicants. And once again, you do want to find that personal story that glues the application together so that when we read your essay, your entire application makes sense, right? And we can see that through the story that you tell us as well. So I know this seminar workshop was really, really short. However, I do hope that this gives you a lot of really good information and trends that you can consider in terms of strategies as well. My biggest recommendation, like I said, is to start early and start now. Admission Masters does do a lot of workshops. If you go into our QR code, there is a section for World Journal Seminar attendees. It says WJ Q&A. You can click on that and fill that out. Ask me any questions that you want. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. And if you did attend this seminar, then we will offer free consultations, so you can sign up for those as well. We do have YouTube videos and YouTube Shorts available, so check out our channel. Otherwise, I hope this was helpful. I want to say thank you to World Journal again, and I hope we meet soon to support you in other ways. Bye, everybody.